Okay, so what we're going to do in this lab is we're going to create S3 replication for disaster recovery purposes. What we're going to do is we're going to create a source or a primary bucket in which we upload files to into the North Virginia region. We'll create an S3 bucket for that. We'll enable versioning. We'll get to see the versioning and see how that works, but we're also going to create a destination bucket in the US West 2 region, which is Oregon, which will be our backup bucket, and how as we upload files into the primary bucket, they are automatically backed up into the destination bucket, an entirely different region. And so cross-region, it's called cross-region replication. Why would you want to do that? Well, you want to achieve true disaster recovery, right? You can have two data centers that are physically close to one another. And yeah, at a lower cost, you can have some sort of disaster recovery where if one data center goes down, the other data center is still available. However, it's in the same region and they can be in close proximity to one another. But for disaster recovery purposes, what if, for example, the internet goes down on the East Coast, like in the North Virginia area, and for whatever reason the internet's down, you get a brownout or a power outage, but everything on the West Coast is fine. You would still have access to your files in the backup bucket. So cross-region replication is the way to achieve a true disaster recovery scenario in which the not only the data centers are physically dissimilar, but the regions are entirely different. Now, when you're using the Academy Learner Lab, the reason we're going to use US West 2 is because this is our sandbox. As I stated before, some access is limited, right? But when it comes to regions, we can only use US East 1 and US West 2. So those are the two that we're going to choose as we go through this lab. Okay? So that's why, we selected those regions. And all you're going to do is go to your Academy Learner Lab and start the lab. Wait for your AWS light to turn green, click on it, and then you'll be in your console. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started. Okay, we're going to click on S3. And we're going to create the primary bucket first. And we have no buckets, so we'll select Create Bucket. We'll give it a name, call it primary dash last name dash, I'll just call it 1234. Okay, and we want to keep the ACLs disabled. We want to uncheck block all public access. We want to acknowledge that. We want to enable versioning. And from here, we're going to create the bucket. Okay, now notice I made a mistake. I'm in the Oregon region. Okay, so one thing to keep in mind is I'm going to delete this bucket. I've got nothing in here. And select delete bucket. Okay, now we're going to create bucket again. I'm going to change the primary. For the primary, we want to be in the North Virginia region. So that's something to pay attention to, right? When you create your primary, right, keep in mind of the region in which your primary bucket's going to be located. Okay, it's going to be in North Virginia. And we'll give it a name again. We'll try it again. Primary bucket Grillo 123. We're going to uncheck block all public access. We want to enable versioning, and we want to select Create Bucket. Oh, we forgot to make sure you acknowledge that you're turning off the block all public access, and then go ahead and create your bucket. Okay, so we have a primary bucket in the US East 1 North Virginia region. What we'll do is we'll now create our backup bucket. So we'll click the drop down arrow under North Virginia. We will select US West 2, which happens to be Oregon. Okay, and we make sure you're in Oregon, right? Make sure it reads Oregon up here, and we'll select create bucket, and we'll call this backup dash bucket Grillo 123. I'll take the word bucket out. I don't think I had it in the other one. Oh, it's just backup. Just call it like that. Backup Grillo 123. And we want to uncheck block off public access. Again, we want to enable versioning. You want to click on it, I acknowledge, and then we're going to select create bucket. Okay, so you have a primary bucket and you have a backup, right? And I should have kept the word bucket in there, but that's okay. One's in the primaries in US East, North Virginia, and your backup bucket is in US West 2, which is in Oregon. Okay, now what we need to do is create our replication rule, right? We want to specify that as we add files to the primary bucket, they will automatically be sent to the backup bucket in an entirely different region. So we'll click on the primary bucket, and to set a replication rule, we click the management tab. And then we're going to want to create a replication rule. So you can either check here or here for to create a replication rule. We'll give it a name, backup dash files to US West 2 dash Oregon. Okay, that'll be the name. You can give it a different name. The source bucket is going to be our primary bucket, which is in the US East North Virginia region. Okay, we want to apply to all objects in the bucket. And we want to choose a destination bucket, right? So it's going to be a bucket in our account. Even though our buckets are two different regions, they're under the same AWS account, right? So we want to select Browse S3. And we want to select the backup bucket in US West. And you want to select choose path. Okay, we want to choose from an existing IAM role. We'll select lab role. Now you have the option, if you want to save money, it depends how often you're going to need or retrieve files from your backup bucket. If you're really going to retrieve files from your backup bucket, you have the option of changing the storage class. If you place a check mark on change storage class, right, we're going to leave it as standard, but if you wanted to save a little money, right, then you could use standard infrequent access. That's what the IA stands for. And you can see what it's designed for, right? Data accessed once a month. Okay? It's a little bit cheaper than standard access. Or if you're hardly ever going to access data in the backup bucket, like for example, it's going to be once a year, maybe, right? And you really want to save some money, you could choose Glacier Deep Archive, and you'll save money. It has a minimum storage duration of 180 days. Just keep in mind that the retrieval of files from that backup bucket will take a couple hours, okay? But we'll leave it as standard. We'll uncheck it. And you don't want to select any of that. We'll click Save. And we'll click Submit. We have no existing objects in the bucket, so we'll just click Submit. And you should get a successfully updated replication configuration. Okay. Now we'll see how it works. Okay. We have our replication rule. We'll go back to our primary bucket, and notice we have no objects in there. We'll upload a letter 1. Now what you can do is create some text files that I did. Simple notepad files. You don't even have to put anything in there. Just give them file names. Call one letter 1, letter 2, letter 3. Okay. And save them onto your desktop or downloads folder. Wherever you save them, just remember where you save them. We'll click the upload button. We will select add files. We'll select letter 1, click open, and then select upload. Okay. Now to show you how the versioning works, again, we've done this before, but real briefly, if we go to letter 1, this is an updated version from the original, right? I'm adding something to it. You can add whatever, add your name to it. The idea is just to get a different timestamp. Okay, so when you save letter 1 and you close it, right, the timestamp matches the current time on my computer, which is 8:11 a.m. Okay, so you get a new timestamp for the file, right? So this is an updated version. And then from here, we're going to re-upload letter 1. So to do that, we're going to click close, and we're going to click the upload button again, and we're going to select add files, and we're going to select letter 1, and we're going to upload. Okay, and when your upload succeeded, click close. Right now, if you want to see the versions, you see where the sliders here on show versions, just click it so the slider moves to the right. Okay, and then you have the original version, and then you have the updated version. And why would you want to enable versioning? Well, I gave the example before of maybe a router configuration file, right? You have an original router configuration file that works, right? This happens a lot in the real world. You make a change, right? And you take that configuration file and you upload a newer version of it. 5 minutes later, you're having all kinds of problems with your network and with your router, right? Routes aren't showing up in the routing table. You're getting errors or mismatches, and you're getting all kinds of notices on your console, on your Cisco router, for example, and you got to go back to the original version the way it worked, right? Well, you have the original version here. You could just download that original version, copy it, and paste it into your router config file, right? And if you have to, reboot the router, and that would get everything working again, okay? And that's just one small example, okay? Now, what we want to do is see that the letter 1 has been copied over to the backup bucket in the US West 2 region. So we click on buckets, and now we're going to click on the backup bucket that's in the Oregon region. Okay, and you'll see that how that letter has been copied over. And again, you can move the slider to the right. Okay, now maybe we didn't enable versioning on the original one. We'll go ahead and do that. Let's go to properties on the backup. Versioning should be enabled. Yeah, it's enabled. Okay, let's try it with letter 2. Sometimes it takes a while too, so I want to test it one more time. We'll go back to the primary bucket. And again, in the North Virginia region, we'll click upload, add files, select letter 2, select upload. We'll click close. Okay, so you got a letter 1, letter 2, show versions. Now what we want to do is go back to letter 2. And let's just type, this is an updated version. Oh, this is letter 3. Oh, no, it's letter 2, excuse me. And we'll click save. So we get a new timestamp for letter 2. And we'll go back to our router, our S3 bucket. And we'll upload letter 2 again. And we will select upload. We'll select close, and we will move the slider over to show versions. Okay. And now we'll go back to our backup bucket in West. And we'll move the slider to show versions. Okay, yeah, it's taking a while. The letter 1 got backed up. The letter 2 should be backed up shortly. But again, you got to see how it works, and the letters have been backed up. I'll upload one more, and we'll go to the primary. And we will just upload the letter 3, the final one. Add files, letter 3. Select upload, close, show versions. Okay, there's no version of letter 3. Now we'll go back to our backup. And we select show versions. Okay, and you get to see the letter 2, right? So it's not happening right away, but you get to see how the files that are being uploaded into the primary bucket are backed up into the backup bucket that's in Oregon region. Okay, now we don't have access to data sync, but it's fairly simple. What if you had existing files? Let's just say you had several files that you had an S3 bucket, and then afterwards you decide you want to create a replication rule. And how would you back up those existing files? Well, you could run a job called data sync, and it's going to give us all sorts of errors, right? Because we don't have the sufficient permissions to do it. But it's fairly simple. You would just create a transfer task, and you would select between AWS storage services. You'd select get started, and you would select choose an existing location. Okay, and you would select your US East 1. Okay, and yeah, you pay for data that's transferred. Okay, and then the location, see, it's not showing us, but you would actually be able to choose a source location, and you could choose your S3 bucket, which would be your source. You'd click next, and then you would do the same thing for your destination bucket. And that's it. And it's pretty simple. So you configure your source location, you configure your destination location, configure settings. There's nothing really you need to do there. Review, and just click finish, and it would be that simple. So you can run a task using data sync. Okay, I wish I could show you that, but it doesn't allow us to do that in the Academy Learner Lab. Okay, so what we want to do now that you got to see how it works, is simply break down the lab. So we want to delete our the only thing we need to do to break down the lab is delete our S3 buckets. Okay, so we're going to select primary. You can go delete, and it's going to tell us we got files in there, right? It's not empty, so we want to select empty bucket. Highlight permanently delete. You could spell it if you want. I got to add the E in there. And empty the contents of the primary bucket. Go to exit. Now you can delete the primary bucket. Click on it and go to delete. Highlight your bucket name without the quotes. Copy and paste it. And select delete bucket. Now you simply have the backup, right? So you just repeat the process for the backup. You just go delete bucket, empty bucket, highlight permanently delete again. Select empty. And select exit. And last step is just to delete the backup bucket. Again, highlight the name without the quotes, copy it, paste it, delete bucket, and that's it. You're actually done with the lab. You just log out, you click sign out, Go back to your Academy Learner Lab, select End Lab, okay, and the only thing you can reset if you want, okay. So that completes the lab about S3 replication and achieving some disaster recovery, okay. Thank you.